has to do with it's really entitled "Which Way Is Up." This sermon is about all the mass confusion and misinformation that we have in our world today. All the underlined, all the underlying secret agendas of the people in authority, the wickedness in high places, and what they have planned for the righteous. All through the Bible, it talks about how we're a peculiar people. We've been chosen by God to keep a certain standard of excellence. And we are bound by that covenant to keep that standard. Now, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of new technology. There's a lot of new ways to exercise that intellectual part of our brain that God blessed us with in the Garden of Eden. And that intellectual part of our brain is really the deciding factor in how we think and what we believe, because we have the ability to research and do homework and explore and find out the many things about the Bible and see that they're true. Also, you have a lot of people out there that are telling you just the opposite is true. And they can show you things that seem to have people believing that, maybe their way is correct. And, when you talk to somebody about the truth, a lot of people will say that everybody has their own truth. And the real part of that is everybody has their own perspective, their own theory, their own perception of what they, gather with the information that they've collected. But there's only one truth. And so a lot of times, people research things and they get, into that rabbit hole and they start believing things, and down at the bottom of that hole, they find a pool of disappointment because they realize that what they were chasing wasn't real. And so at the service today in Belleville, somebody mentioned a saying that one of the rabbis, Rabbi Levi Plummer, he said something that stuck in this person's mind. He said that you can learn from another person's mistakes. And I think that's part of the problem that we're having, is that a lot of younger people don't realize that that's true. And it's designed that way so that the mistakes that the generation before you made can be shown to the new generation, and they can avoid those mistakes and move further in the process. We're spinning our wheels if the next generation tries the same thing that the generation before them tried, and basically they're attempting to reinvent the wheel. And so if we trust in the teachings of our forefathers, and we trust in the teachings of our elders and our parents, then there's no doubt that we're going to move forward and we're going to catapult the next generation into where they need to be. We talk about in the Shema, that Charlotte read. In the Shema, it talks about teaching these things diligently to your children. And in order to do that, there has to be a bond, a connection, a trust between the parent and the child, where at the very least, that child knows that that parent would never steer them into danger or hardship. And that parent will always be truthful with them and honest with them. And not only do they talk about that truthfulness and that way of life, they try to live and emulate that way of life to show these children and give them a living example of what they're talking about. And another part of the problem that we're having with the new generation is there's a whole generation of parents that don't practice what they preach. And that discourages the new generation. And they've got so many options and so many choices that they can make that they walk away from that. that when they get old enough and when they get mature enough and they feel more independent, they're sure they're not going to go that way because the people that were trying to teach them were hypocrites. And so in order for us to get the new generation on track, the old generation has to be on track. You know, it's a shame that these young people go into the church and they're bothered by the behavior of the elders. They're bothered by the behavior of the very people that their care has been entrusted into and is supposed to be showing them the way to go. And they aren't showing them the way to go. They're showing them the way that they're going. And I say it all the time, and I want to reiterate this again. Children don't do what you say. They do what they see you do. And so if you're supposed to be the person that's setting an example for this young person, you're supposed to be doing what you're telling them to do. And that way they hear it and they see it and they can feel it, so they believe it. And that's the whole thing. Belief is everything. Faith, trust is everything in this. And what's going to happen is